Thank God. For everybody who's in the live stream, I'm really sorry. This is on me. I forgot to click go live. So that's why we've been having the meeting and the live stream was not working. So here, I'm going to go over the agenda. And then at the end of the presentation, I'm going to go over the updates of the fair because I think that these are the most important things of what we covered. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat because we will be going over questions in between sections. So sorry for all of that. I'm still trying to figure this out. So this is our first time having a virtual workshop. Just to go over what we're covering today, we're going to do some tips on getting started with your project if you don't know what your project is going to be already. We also went over the GSDSEF website resources and we're going to go over how to make an account. We're also going to talk about our recommended schedule for planning your project because this is really important to make sure that you have your project ready by March. And in addition, we're going to go over in extreme detail how to apply to safety approval, which is called the SRC pre-approval process. And then we're also going to talk about the important components of a project and what goes in your notebook because this is actually a really important component of the science fair this year. It's actually necessary, and I will go over all those details again for everyone who is in the live stream. And then lastly, we have peer advising time after this presentation. And so if you are in the live stream, again, if you are in the live stream but want to participate in the peer advising time, I highly recommend it because members will be personally advising you on specific project categories. And they can really talk to you about your personal questions. Please fill out the link below or email us at slb@gsdsef.com and I'll email you those links. All right. Sorry. So what we were doing just now is we were talking about some guidelines for projects. Were we here? Yes. Kavya, do you know how to summarize or... Yeah, can you summarize a little bit what you were talking about before with prompting with like how to review a previous project and I guess some categories?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I can go back to the project categories.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, please go ahead.
No problem. So yeah, as I was saying before, there's basically 16 project categories and the main ones that have like smaller ones between would be engineering, life science, physics, and chemistry. So they all have smaller projects and more specific categories. So you should definitely see which category your project fits into. So like, for example, engineering has many different smaller categories, such as electrical and mechanical engineering, energy and transport, and materials and bioengineering. So again, yeah, just go on the Science Fair website, and then you'll see all the project categories and see which one your project fits into.
So here we can go straight to guidelines, I guess.
Okay, so yeah, again, so basically there's a couple of guidelines that you should look at for choosing a project. So you should always see if your project is safe. So you should always perform a project in a safe and controlled environment since your safety is the #1 priority. Especially in these times, you should see whether or not if it's doable, because we highly encourage that you do it virtually, and because like it's not advised to go outside right now, so we feel like if you can do it virtually, then it's probably better. And then also in other aspects, this is doable, such as resources and budget. Do you have enough money to complete your project? Like it shouldn't be too high achieving that you can't complete it, but I'm sure there's many ways that you can figure out how to do it. And then also you should make sure that there's never any gender comparisons, meaning like you should never say that, oh, boys are better than girls because of this reason. You should always be inclusive of everyone. And then also you should make sure that you have good data because you must be able to reproduce your experiments again and again. It's always better to have a bigger data sample size versus a smaller one, so you can you're more confident in your answer or your hypothesis. And then also you should make sure that you can like access a significant sample size. It shouldn't be inaccessible. And then also stay away from psychology, because there's usually like opinions in psychology. So there might be like opinionated data that you might get. For example, like if you send out a form for a lot of different people, you'll get different like varying answers. So okay, so many people who have participated in the science fair before, they're allowed to update their old projects, but it's important to make sure that when you do update it, it's not the same exact project as last time. So you want to try to change different either variables, or you want to extend the initial idea, or if you have a device, then you can like have different prototypes for it. So like I'll give my example. I had something to create a device. So something that I could do is I could create another prototype, or I could add something onto that device. So definitely when you're updating a project, make sure there's something that's significantly different for this new year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, Sandra. I was gonna prompt you to say if there's any questions from the live stream.
As of the chat, there's no questions, but if any of you guys have questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask.
Okay, if we have no further questions, we're just going to go on. I guess just for a reminder for everybody who's joining us on the live stream, I will be going over fair updates at the end of the presentation again, because I think that that's really important and that's something that everyone wants to know. Otherwise, please, Sanjana, go ahead with your slides.
All right, so now we're going to be talking a little bit about how to plan your project. So here we have a lovely workflow of what a science fair project timeline looks like. The first step is to brainstorm your ideas, conduct background research, and design your experiment and figure out the logistics. This is really important to get a baseline to your project in terms of the timeline, as well as how to gather materials and to plan your resources, and also your experimental design, of course. This is all critical to determining future steps. And you want to conduct this in a timely manner so that you can give yourselves a few weeks of leeway to complete everything else. Then you're going to want to apply to the safety screening. You're going to want to fill out all certification forms before beginning to work so that you know that your project is safe and that it meets all the qualifications and safety regulations to participate, which is really good because if you were to start working on a project and then you realize that it was unsafe for some reason, you could get disqualified before you even start really gathering your data, which would be very unfortunate. So to prevent circumstances like that where your work becomes futile or you're working in unsafe conditions, we'd highly recommend taking these steps first.
Actually, it's not like a recommendation. You have to do the safety certification before you start your work, just to clarify.
But we'd recommend doing it very early on. And of course, it has to be before you begin your work. So then you're going to generate your data. And you do this by performing any tests and analyzing any data that's applicable to your project. This is going to vary based off of what your project design is, which you've dictated in previous steps. But this process can be pretty laborious depending on what your project is. So I would say definitely give yourself a lot of time to generate your data and really carry out those scientific methods to do so. Then you move on to a really important step, which is a project screening. So this is when you submit your project and your, in this case, write-up as well to the GSDSEF website for screening so that you can enter the science fair. So you're going to submit your report write-up and your board design. And also, we'd highly recommend to practice speaking because when you're presenting in a science fair, it's really important to kind of have a spiel that you're going to say so that you're very well prepared and you can give judges the impression that you are very comfortable with the subject matter, which I mean, I'm sure you are because you've been looking at this for like months at this point, but yes, that'd be good.
Yeah. Sorry to clarify, I didn't edit these slides before putting in the updates, but you are not required to make a board this year. I'm reiterating for those that are in the live stream. Sorry for everybody in the meet if it seems like I'm reiterating a lot of things, but That's just the nature of this. We don't have like boards are not required this year. Instead, we will be doing slides. So this part about board design is actually not required this year. Yeah.
Yes. So instead, you may be able to submit a video because we are we're recommending that you submit a video so that judges can familiarize themselves with your project and kind of gather interest in it beforehand. So Science Fair Week is in March, so that's a really good way to kind of plan out your timeline to be cognizant of when Science Fair is. So that's really exciting. So that's going to be when you present, when you get judged, and when it's announced like as to what you've achieved and what awards you've won. Science Fair Week is very exciting. And the final step is to evaluate your post-Science Fair options. This is actually very important and often pretty understated. We'll be getting into this a little bit later, but it's really important to have a bit of foresight as to where you want to take your project, whether that be to higher level science fairs. So if you're planning to compete, especially high schoolers in the Intel ISEF fair or in the California fair, if you qualify, then it's really good to be cognizant of those deadlines so you know when and where to submit everything. And also, if you want to publish your research, that's also a really good ulterior method that we'll be getting into later.
Yeah, so we're covering these parts today. That's why I put this here. So yeah.
So here is an example of a recommended schedule. As you can see, this is arranged by months from October to March. So you can see that this is actually a pretty long process and that we'd recommend getting started pretty soon. And that from early October to pretty much mid-November, it's great to start brainstorming for your project. It's really good to get those safety screening papers in way before the deadline. We'd recommend probably very early November, just so you have more time to work on everything. But the deadline will be, I believe, December 1st. Oh, no, sorry, December 31st. But regardless, I'd say get it in early. You'll then give yourself a lot of time for data collection and analysis. And you also want to give yourself plenty of time for report writing and video making and just presentation preparation pretty much. Project screening, that's going to happen in February, so be cognizant of that. The last submissions and project deadlines will be somewhere from January to February, so again, just be cognizant of those deadlines. We also do have our SLB workshops coming up. We have one in November, we have one in January, we have two in February, and one in late March. So be sure to look out for those. And of course, we have our important deadlines highlighted, one being on the 31st, which is the safety screening deadline, and the project deadlines depending on the grade, and the last submission day, and of course the science fair. So again, you can find this information also by revisiting the live stream or by going on the website.
Yeah, I just want to point out for everybody that these slides will be made available to you on the website after this presentation. So don't feel stressed about taking screenshots and writing notes. We will make these available, and you can ask further questions in the peer advising groups. All right.
So this is a reiteration of the important deadlines. So December 31st is the safety screening deadline. The digital project screening deadlines by grade are January 20th for 6th and 7th grade, January 29th for 8th grade, and February 8th for all high schoolers. February 17th will be the digital project resubmissions. So if there's for some reason some error or qualification that you needed to fix, February 17th is the deadline to resubmit your project then. And February 24th is the final participation payment deadline. So you will have to pay for your participation fees by then. And March 16th to the 21st is our fair week. So be sure to mark your calendars on this because there will be no exceptions to late submissions, but early ones are highly appreciated because we are pretty lenient with these deadlines, but we'd recommend you get started early because we know that most students who start their projects early are pretty successful in this, and we highly recommend submitting the forms early because they make the screeners' jobs much easier considering they're volunteers as well. So
sorry.
now,
Should we ask stop for questions? Are there any?
yeah, my bad. So
Okay,
if
great.
anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. There seem to be none from the live stream as of now, but we'll wait for a little bit because the live stream is a bit delayed.
Okay, if there are none, please go ahead.
All right, great. So in terms of applying to the fair, that's what we're going to be covering next. So a bit of an overview of applying. The first step that you're going to want to do is have your project idea and have a rough sense of your experimental design. Then you're going to make a GSDSEF account, which you can do via the website. The process is pretty well highlighted in the website, so be sure to check that out. Then you're going to apply to safety screening. During safety screening, you're going to submit your SRC pre-approval form online, your SRC signature page, which can be either in paper or digital signature, and any other necessary forms, which is also with paper or digital signature. Other forms will depend also on project category, especially if you're dealing with live animals or live cultures or any harmful chemicals. You'll be expected and required to fill out the necessary forms for that. So be sure to be cognizant of that based off of your subject matter. Then you wait for SRC approval and any comments before you start. This will help you get on track with your project, and it will allow for any advice or any safety concerns to be voiced so that you can have a good, safe start to your project. And then you start your project. It's great. So now we're going to be talking about how to brainstorm for your project. Before starting, we'd highly recommend checking out the How to Participate page on the GSDSEF website for step-by-step procedures to participate. The rules, any required certification forms, and the directions for all processes will be highlighted there. We highly recommend discussing your project with any adult, and you are required to have a mentor. So whether that be your teacher or a professor at a local lab, then that would be very, very good to do, and also required because you are required to have a mentor. But yes, it's good to discuss your project with teachers, parents, and mentors, especially those who are well versed in the subject that you're tackling. And also go over the tips we presented earlier if you're stuck with this, because those will help you kind of get on the ground and get running in your project. And be sure to fill out the correct forms, by the way. I've emphasized that, but it's super duper important. Like time and time again, there have been unfortunate disqualifications as a result. So we really want to prevent that with you guys, because you're already taking the initiative to show up and everything. And we know how hard of workers you are. So don't let that take your project down, please. With that being said, I'm going to turn to
Sorry.
Okay, so just like Sanjana just briefly talked about, you have to have a teacher when you apply for the science fair. And so your teacher must have their own account also. So when you ask them, you need to tell them that they need an account also. So to make your account, you just go to the Greater San Diego Science Engineering Fair website. And then those are the directions. And then so like we were talking about safety screening. So when you log in, it'll just like have all the stuff for you to do. You have to fill out the SRC approval form and all the safety forms. So in this section, you'll fill out some basic info, like it'll ask you for your like your project question. It'll ask you like some materials, your hypothesis, and a bit about your project plan. And that's where you brainstorm your project idea. Okay, so you need to, before, like for the screening, you have to get signatures for the SRC pre-approval page. So on this page, there's 4 signatures I believe you need. You need like your like student or you, your parent signature, You also need your teacher's signature and a mentor's signature. Okay, so this is an additional flowchart that is on our website. So this flowchart will help you determine whether you need to fill out any additional safety forms, such as the continuation form, the vertebrate animal form, human subjects, potential hazardous substances, etc. Okay, so this is kind of important, so listen if you're doing like vertebrate or animal stuff. So if you're doing like research with vertebrate animals, you need to make sure that your project complies with the California Educational Code and all the rules and regulations. You need to make sure your research with animals is done in like a laboratory setting. All safety regulations are followed and everything. So you can't just, go in your backyard, pick up a lizard and decide to like do research on it. It has to be in an actual lab where everything is regulated.
Yeah, so if you're doing work like this, you'll likely be working in an actual lab, like Lynn was saying, at like a university like UCSD or some other organization. So you should really check with your mentor to make sure that you have all these forms and that they're dated correctly before the start of your project. We have to emphasize that dates must be correct. It must be accurate with like before you started your project. Because of many, many issues that we've gotten at higher fairs. You do not want to be that person. So yeah.
Okay, so here's a summary on the two things. The pre-approval form with the 4 signatures, and then the additional certification safety forms if you need them.
Lynn, there's actually 3 signatures. It's yours, your teachers, and your parents, I believe. Actually, is there a mentor signature on there?
I believe there's a mentor on this.
Okay, I'm sorry then. Sorry for that. Yes. Also, for those of you watching on the live stream, we have a YouTube series started by the GSDSEF SLB leadership. The leadership have done a good video series on all of this. So if you were kind of confused or you want to see it straight from the website, you can go and do that. And yeah, otherwise you can also ask us any questions if you have them.
Yeah, so there are, I guess, this is mine from last year, I guess. There's 4 boxes, but the 4th one is only necessary if you're doing research with like live animals or tissues or that kind of stuff.
Great. All right.
Okay, so after submitting all your like forms and everything, you'll usually receive an answer in 2 to 3 days. So if they tell you you need to fill out an additional form, you better fill it out before you start with your project. And so this is not the actual digital screening. That digital screening will be done closer to the fair. This is only just safety. This is to make sure your project is okay to be, your experimentation is okay to be started. Okay, so another note. If you are going to compete, if you qualify for like California State Fair or, ISEF, since you're doing these forms anyway, we would recommend you start with the ISEF forms. Just because they're a bit of a hassle to do, after March when the fair is already over. And then you have to like go run around and get signatures from everybody all over again. I guess I would recommend you do the ISEF forms and the safety screening forms together, just so you can just get all the signatures and be done with it. Because it does ask you about dates and all that kind of stuff. And then it's kind of annoying. You have to like backtrack and think about what you did when and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so the deadline to submit the signature page, the pre-approval page, and all the other safety forms is December 31st. But like we said, we would recommend you submit it before so you have adequate time to experiment. And if you do not meet this deadline, you will not be able to compete in the fair this year.
All right, Sanjana, is there anybody who has asked any questions from the live stream?
Yes, so someone asked, can we, I'm assuming this pertains to experimentation on vertebrate animals, but it was asked, can we do this at our school lab? Will that work?
Yeah, so for vertebrate animals, your school must have a school level certification board that is usually university level. So I would recommend checking with your teacher on that. Has anybody done with the SLB members, has anybody done any vertebrate animal experimentation at their school labs actually? Yeah, so this is generally a area of experimentation that requires a university or organization level like certification board. So you should ask so for the person who asked, you should definitely ask your teacher what are the requirements for that, and if your school is certified to do that, because there are very specific forms associated with that type of experimentation, including supervision. So your teacher would have to be like a certified mentor per se. I hope that answered your question. So, yep. Does anybody in the Jitsi Meet have any questions? Okay, great. Ellen, please go ahead.
Do have
one. Sorry.
Ask in the chat, what kind of video does it have to be? Is it a video about the overall?
Sorry, can you say that again?
They're asking, what kind of video does it have to be? Is it a video about the overall? And then just
like the video that's required for this year?
I'm guessing, yeah, that's
okay. We do not have the details on that video. We just know that there may be the potential to make a video that we recommend. So we don't have any details on how long it should be or when it will be shown to the judges, if it is shown. However, you should monitor the website and we will release details as the SLB finds out more, okay? Sorry for not having that up front. Okay, cool. Everyone good? All right, Ellen, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so we've talked about a lot about forms and everything, so now we're gonna get into the actual meat of starting your project. So the first thing, I know we've said this a lot, but it's really important not to procrastinate. We've laid out a timeline in the previous slides that you guys and like a lot of our SLB members have shown, so you should definitely follow that. And I know a lot of times it feels like you can get your project done in like a month, or you're just like, oh, okay, I think I can do it like just right before the deadline, but that's never a good decision, because when the judges can actually tell when you're presenting, if you don't have enough data, or if the process, you skipped a few steps because you didn't have enough time. So definitely make sure that you leave enough time and that you're getting each step of the way done in the right time frame. So the next thing are mentors. So mentors are great to have just for someone to look over your project, or someone that's a little more experienced in the field that your project is in, to give you advice or like kind of mentorship, right? So for the junior division, this can be parents and teachers. So if you have a science teacher who you think could help you a lot with your project, that could be a possible mentor, or a parent as well. For senior division, you could have teachers or even university professors and graduate students. These are a little bit older mentors who can help you. And for this, it's really important not to be shy. Even though it might be intimidating to reach out to people that are a lot older or more experienced, you can definitely just try to email them or contact them. And the worst thing they can do is say no. So it's always good to just try and reach out to people who you think can help you in the project, even if you're not sure if they will actually say yes, or if you're a little bit nervous about actually reaching out to them. Also, experts in the field can give you a lot of important insights just because they know a lot more or they've been working in the field for a long time. So definitely try to get a mentor if you can, and trying to research about the different professors in your area if you're in senior division, and looking at people in the field who you think can possibly help you in the project. One thing you can do is email a lot of people. So oftentimes professors will have a university email, and you can try to email them to request for mentorship. Or otherwise, there's a few other ways you can try to reach out to mentors, but generally emailing people can work. Also, when you're emailing them, make sure you're referencing their scientific work and explaining why you are interested in conducting research under the facility. So really showing that you know a lot about what they're doing and a specific reason why you would like to have them as your mentor for your project. And also, because science is like a really big community, there's mentors and peer reviews, and that's a really important part of the scientific process, just because it's good to have someone else look over your work or give you advice or feedback, or just offer a different perspective on what your project is really trying to solve. Also, I'm not sure if you guys have heard about it, but as the SLB has a student mentorship program, which you can sign up for. And this is a really, really great way to get mentorship from people who have already gone through the whole process of FAIR. So whether you want help on which forms to fill out, or just the entire science fair project in general, or you want feedback on your project from someone who's already gone through the whole process and can provide a second perspective, that's a really good way to go through with that. So you can sign up through links on our Instagram. Or I think the sign up hasn't been posted yet, right, Jesse? Or
yeah, the sign up hasn't been posted yet. We are trying to give priority to students in who have less opportunities in concerning STEM with their locations and things like that. So if we do have space for students who just want general mentorship, we will be opening that up on our social media. But as of now, we are still leaving that for students of certain schools.
Yeah, so if you're interested, for sure, check up on our Instagram page. And if we do have more spaces for that, we'll definitely post it there. So just keep an eye out for it. All right, so the next thing is the hypothesis or goal. And these are basically questions that prompt your research. So basically, like, based on facts, so after you do a bunch of literary research, you should ask yourself, what do you think will happen? So that's basically what the essence of a hypothesis is, and basically laying out what is your solution to the problem you're trying to solve. Another good question to ask yourself is your hypothesis viable? So if it's testable with measurable results, then that's usually a good sign. If you can't really test your hypothesis, you should probably try to find a way to change it, or narrow it down just so you can test it and show through your experimentation that the hypothesis is true or false. Also, try to lay out how you will test your hypothesis. So this will set up the procedure for the rest of your project. And also, will you be able to conduct these tests? So we mentioned before that whatever you do, your project has to be viable, because if you have a really great project that's solving a really big problem, but you actually can't do it yourself, then that might be a problem. So make sure that you're actually able to conduct these tests to verify your hypothesis. Also, I wanted to point out a difference between science projects and engineering projects. If you're doing a science project, say in like biology, then hypothesis is the one that you're going for. But for engineering projects, you would go for the goal. So hypothesis is like what you think will happen, and the goal is kind of more of what you want to achieve through like building the engineering project. Okay, so the next part is beginning a science notebook. And this is a really, really important part of the project, not only because it's something that you might be showing to the judges and is part of your whole like showcase during science fair, but also because it's super helpful for brainstorming and just keeping all your ideas in one place and something that you can just look at and keep updating from time to time. So it's really important in the process as well as the end result. And everyone needs a science notebook. It is required. So along with your video or like presentation for this year, you'd also need to have a physical science notebook probably. Also, this includes initial ideas, data recording, brainstorming, basically anything part of the process you'd want to put in this notebook. It could be just like trying to find an idea in the beginning, just writing down some potential ideas and then showing your brainstorming process. Or your literary research, you can jot down notes in your notebook. And basically any results or data and steps along the way, you can always write down in a notebook just so everything's in one place. And one really important aspect of judging is that they really like to see your work. So what have you actually done during the time that you've been working on the project, and how, like, they want to see like how much have you been working on it, and what is like the scientific process. Did you improve and like iterate? Do you have many prototypes drawn in your notebook? Do you have many trials and data? So yeah, that's really important, because although it's not your polished product, it's not like the final video that you show, it's still really important to be able to see the process that you went through and all of the kind of small bits that went into that. One really good example can be found on the Science Fair website. When I was writing my notebook, I found it super, super helpful, because it's just a really good way to see like a solid example that you can like follow. Also, make sure to save all data. I know during my project, since I did a computer science project, there was a bunch of data and a bunch of numbers. And at first I didn't save all of them because I just thought, oh, it's just one trial, right? Like, if I just write down the accuracy, I'll be fine. But I've learned that like it's really good, even if you have, it seems unnecessary to put all the data on there. It's better to put it there now so that in case you need it for later, it's good to show, rather than leaving it off and then wishing you wrote it down later on. So just as like precautionary, you should always put your data into your notebook.
Yeah, just to add to that, if you have to, if you add like if you have a lot of data, you may not want to put it all in your notebook. Sorry, is there a playback for mine? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry then. Yeah, so definitely judges do like to see what we call pre-trials. For example, if you're trying to optimize for a certain condition, like you want to try to see what is the right range to test, then you can definitely put that in your notebook, because that's something really interesting that judges like to do. They like to see that you've done a lot of work, you care a lot about your project. But on the other hand, if you have data that's just like overwhelming to look at, you might want to consider putting it in what we call like an appendix, or putting it on like an online repository, because it's just like a lot, right? But you do want to find a way to show the work.
Yeah, thanks, Jessie. I actually forgot to mention the appendix. That's super important. Yeah, she's definitely correct. Like, if you have large amounts of data, sometimes it's bad to put it like in the middle notebook just because it's just a lot. So yeah, if you think that it goes better in the appendix, definitely that's a good place to put it as well. All right, so the next part is the experimental design and data analysis. So after you have your hypothesis and after you've already set up your notebook and everything, you can start actually collecting the data and going through the data analysis. One thing that's important before you start, though, is having someone review your design before doing it. Just because, so it could be like your mentor or just like a teacher or something like that. Just because once you actually start, and it's a lot harder to like start over. So make sure that before you start, that your design's all good and that people, like a second opinion, has told you that it's good to go. Another thing to do is pre-test. And also compare and contrast. So you want to know like what is in control, what's the variable that you're actually testing, and making sure that your design sets it up in a way that the results actually show that the variable that you're trying to test actually produce like certain results. So that's really important. Also read the literature. So one thing before you actually start everything that's good to do is to actually do a lot of background research of the subject or the problem that you're trying to solve. And this is a good way to like brainstorm and see what other people have done. But also when you are about to start your data analysis, it's good to see what do others typically do or test, and how can you kind of change, like do something different, but maybe take some things that you've learned from that and apply it to your own project. And we'll kind of go over this more during our second workshop. So we'll definitely be explaining more about the experimental design and data analysis more later on. So be sure to keep posted for that.
Yeah, so thank you so much for everybody who has come today. So we're just gonna finish up. Again, like Ellen just said, we are holding a second workshop on January 9th, and we might be holding one earlier in December if there is demand for that. And we're going to talk about data analysis and how to write your report. And we're going to concentrate more this year on how to write your notebook and probably put together your slides, because that is what is going to be presented this year. So please stay tuned for all of those details and mark your calendars. And yeah, if you want to contact us for more questions, you can always email us at gsdsefslb@gmail.com, or you can DM us on our social media, or visit the website for all these resources that we've mentioned in this presentation. And thank you so much for everybody that joined in. We're going to start the peer advising time very shortly. And again, for those in the live stream, please email us or fill out the form, and I will be sending those links very soon. I will probably put them in the live stream chat. And now, because we messed up the live stream, I'm going to go over the details that we know about the fair updates, just for the benefit of everyone, because I know that this was a really different year, and it's really important to know this. So sorry for everybody in the meet, but I'm going to go over this again. The fair is still happening in March, and it will be fully virtual. All the things that we just mentioned, such as safety screening and the digital project screening, we mentioned that briefly, those will be the same as usual. You will apply the same as usual through our website. However, you must still keep a project notebook. That is something that is required this year, and it may be asked for when you are being judged. So please remember to document everything very closely, because this is like how your work will be presented. Some more details on the changes are that we will not be requiring backwards this year, but project notebooks are required. In addition, we are highly discouraging group projects because of social distancing guidelines, and the application fee this year is a bit less, so it's $25 per student. In addition, we do recommend that you make a video about your project, but we don't have the details currently on video length or how exactly it should be formatted, like if you should do it in front of your board or something like that. So I guess don't make it now. I don't think many people are ready to make it now, but we will be releasing more details about that as we receive them. The virtual judging kind of looks like making a digital slide deck, such as like a PDF of a PowerPoint, or you do it like on Google Slides. And this slide deck should have pictures of the student researcher in action doing your project. And you will have a virtual interview with a judge. So we're trying to keep that interaction between the judge and the student really similar. And you may have to refer or display your notebook if asked by the judge during this interview. So this is more or less what we're thinking of for the actual fair. We don't have a ton of details right now, and we're really sorry about that, but things are changing really fast. So we will definitely update you on the website and social media as things progress. Okay, does anybody have any questions through the live stream, or you can chat here? I see Caitlin has said, does the notebook have to be a physical notebook, or it can be typed out and printed later? That is a great question. So yes, the notebook can be typed out and printed later. However, if you're brainstorming ideas in a physical notebook, just like writing random thoughts, doing sketches and things like that, those are really fun to see from a judge's perspective because it shows your thought process. So you, of course, can type out your notebook and print it. That is totally fine. But like if you are using handwritten components, you should kind of think of a way that you can incorporate that in your research too, or in your notebook too, because like you don't want it to be omitted when judges, if judges see your notebook, because that's like something really cool. Yeah. Sanjana, is there any questions from the live stream?
Yes, there were earlier in the presentation, but Mr. Rodeker has graciously answered them.
Okay, awesome.
If there are any remaining questions, feel free to ask anyone in the live stream.
Okay, if not, I will be stopping the live stream now. Again, anybody in the live stream, please email GSDSEF@gmail.com and fill out the form where you will find like all the links. I will be posting the links in the live stream chat just because it's just going to be really difficult for me to like answer all these emails, so just in case. And with that, thank you so much for coming and for your patience, as this is our first time doing this type of workshop. So for everybody on the live stream, thank you.